episode 3 of the Small Business Big Presence show. We are your hosts, Madison Black
and Rory Manatunga.
And today we're going to be examining the 4-part Facebook page growth loop. But in fact, we're only going to be diving into stage 1.
Numero uno
of the group of the loop, which is inspiration. And that we're going to help you gain the inspiration you need to grow your Facebook page strategy. So, Rory, before we dive too deep into stage 1, I do think it's worth us just really quickly doing a recap on what the 4 stages are, so that we can understand how inspiration fits into that.
Totally. So
you want to take it away?
Yeah, I'll take it away. So the 4 stages of the Facebook page growth loop.
I love that.
Growth loop.
I don't feel like that's appropriate, the grope loop. But sorry, please take it away. What are the 4 stages?
So the 4 stages are number 1, inspiration. Number 2, creation. Number 3, interaction. And number 4, which is my personal favourite, evaluation.
I also do love evaluation. They are kind of self-explanatory, and we will be doing over the next 4 weeks a deep dive into each of the 4, but today it's all about gaining inspiration for your page. Now, this is going to be a lot of repeated information that we had from last week's episode, which we talked a lot about the ideal customer avatar. And the truth is that is definitely somewhere that we start with inspiration. You really want to know who your audience is.
Why do you want to know who your audience is?
I don't know, you tell me.
Well, put it back on me.
An interview?
Basically, guys, you want to know who your ideal client avatar is, because you want all your content to be funneling them towards you, your services, your products, your business. You want posts that inspire them, hence inspiration. You want them to inspire engagement. Comments, shares, and yes, reactions as well are helpful. So that's the big reason why you don't want to just be chucking viral posts up there. You don't want to just be putting stuff that you enjoy. You want to know what your clients will enjoy, and more importantly, what will inspire them to take action.
Absolutely. It's all about, as we talked about in the last couple of episodes, it's all about inspiring engagement, because ultimately that's what the Facebook algorithm is going to be noticing and rewarding if it's happening on your page. So you really do need to get really specific about who your ideal customer is. Because if you don't, it's really hard to even craft. You were mentioning content. It's hard to craft the voice that you use for your content.
Yeah, that's going to vibe with your clients, and
which comes down to even understanding the terminologies that they use, how formal you should be writing what you're writing.
Swear words.
Yes, some audiences love to have it really like raw and
edgy
real.
1-2 jab.
Yeah, exactly. So vernacular is so important. Vernacular. Any Stooges fans out there will understand that reference. But it's really important that you understand what kind of voice that you need to be using, which you can only do if you're really clear on the specific details of what makes up an ideal client. So, Ross, do you want to break down a couple of what those like specific areas you might want to know about your ideal client could be?
Yeah, for sure, guys. So the first thing that always comes to mind is gender, age, and where they're located. They're the big 3. They're very broad, of course. So it's the starting point, but you do want to nail down those 3 stages. So that's gender, that's what age range they're in, age specific, and where they are based.
Especially if you're a local business, that location-based one is so important. You don't want to be sharing things on your Facebook page that aren't relevant if it's not local to them, especially if you are a brick and mortar style local business. So we can't emphasize that enough, that it might feel like basic work to get those 3 down, but it's really important. Another one I want to touch on that you mentioned is the age bracket, because
how do you think, like, I know myself, everyone I've talked to, it's really hard to narrow down or expand upon an age range. Like, do you have any ideas or thoughts on like how big is too much of an age range, how small?
Well, like with so much of what we talk about in regards to small business, I mean, small business as a term is so broad. It covers so many different styles of business, and how do we categorise? I mean, when I think of what a small business is, we're talking to businesses who have probably less than 10 employees, or very limited employees. They might be a one-person operation. It might be online. It might be e-commerce. It might be MLM. It might be brick and mortar. It can be a whole different range of things. So it's kind of a how long is a piece of string kind of question, because, for instance, a business that we talk quite a lot about is, say, hairdressers. And a hairdresser, obviously their age range could be anything from your kid's first haircut at age 1 or 2 to, seniors coming in for their Wednesday seniors discount haircut. Like, it can be so broad. But what you do want to consider, especially when you're thinking about your Facebook page strategy, who of those customers is on Facebook?
Good point.
And if we continue to use the example of a hairdresser, obviously it's going to be probably a younger demographic who are going to be using those services. You probably want to think about gender as being majority female, who are going to come in and spend the most money.
Especially if you're in a salon, of course, it would be the flip side if it was more of a barber style.
Absolutely.
Hairdresser.
Yeah, and they're the customers who are likely going to be spending the most on their hair changes. They're going to be keeping up to date with the fashion styles and getting the different cuts or colours that are in at that time. So you want to think about what's the purpose of your page, and then how does that dictate who the age range is going to be. Something that I've seen you talked about a lot in terms of ideal customer is that the age or the profile that you build is almost as if you're talking to a single person. So some people say with your ideal customer avatar that you should actually just put even a single age. So you might be 27. You can get that specific.
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to having a bit of a range, because it is going to help you understand a little bit about who lives within that range and what kind of services or products or whatever it is that your business is providing would be buying.
Yeah.
But I don't think that there is such a strict
rule to follow.
No. So some other kinds of things that you might be looking at is how much your ideal customer is earning. That can be a really important one.
And would you I suppose you could do both, but would it be person income? Would it be household income?
Again, it's going to depend on who your customer is. So if you're a small business who perhaps installs solar systems or something like that, you might be more of a handyman, labour person type thing who comes to houses. That might be more of a household income situation.
Yeah.
Again, with the hairdressing example, you're most likely going to be doing individual. So you do need to adapt how you put this ideal customer avatar together based on your business.
Yeah, for sure.
But then you can also be looking at things like hobbies, goals, what kind of posts on Facebook they look at. We're going to be touching on that shortly as part of inspiration. There's a whole heap of what kind of car they drive. Is that relevant to, do they use a car at all? You can really get detailed and try and almost some people suggest getting so specific as you give them a name. It might be Lucy,
Randy,
the 27-year-old who gets her hair foiled every 3 weeks.
Potentially, yeah. I think that's probably a good activity to really drill down to the finer details, and then you can take that in mind, aiming it at what's her name, bloody Lucy.
Yeah.
But it'll still apply to Joan and Mary, and I'm running out of female names. Zinni, Maddie.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and the thing I like to say too, because especially if you go into this exercise for the first time and you're not quite sure who your customer is, you maybe haven't really given it a lot of thought in the past, and you might not have a lot of data to support what you're going to be putting into this worksheet. My suggestion is put down what you think at the time as best you can, and have that document be a work in progress. You want to be coming back and reviewing as you get to know your audience better, as you fine-tune your marketing efforts, as you fine-tune your Facebook efforts, exactly who exists on that ideal customer avatar worksheet.
Perfect.
Yeah. And that does also lead me into saying that somewhere that you can go instantly to get this information to inspire you as to who is in your audience is your own Facebook page or your own customer base. If you run any kind of customer relationship management system, go and get some data. All of those systems, especially like, again, using a hairdresser, they often have a client database that they're operating out of.
Yeah.
There's always a way to pull reports out of there. If you don't know how, get in touch with the software provider that you use and start to see who are the largest demographics of customers that you have coming in. The same could be said for if you're an e-commerce business. Look at maybe location, for instance.
Yeah.
You know, which country are you selling the most amount of product to? Or maybe you're able to go even finer than that.
You can sort of break it down to that 80-20 rule where 20% of your marketing efforts will get you 80% of your results. And I think that's what's really helpful about the ideal client avatar is you can drill down in on that 20% that's going to give you the majority of results.
Absolutely. And I think that's such a good point to touch on as well, because we can get fearful of going so fine-tuned on that customer avatar that we think we're excluding people from our audience, but it just isn't the case. If anything, you're likely to bring in that 20% who actually spend 80% of the money that's coming through your business, even more. So you might even be extending that 20% to 30 or 40% of the business of the customer base that you have.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's really all I kind of have to say about ideal customer. I mean, we've got a worksheet we're going to suggest that you work through at the end of this episode. And in fact, if you want to go and grab it now, you can over at bigpresentshow.com/inspire. And that's going to really help you get clear. It's got lots of questions that it's going to work you through in terms of who your ideal customer is, as well as a few other pieces of inspiration that you can be delving into, which we're about to speak about. But definitely fill that in, and as I said, have it be a working document. Have it be something, set yourself a reminder in your calendar every month, every quarter, every year, however often you think is most important and relevant to your business, to come back, review that document and see if in fact you have been selling to your ideal customer.
Yeah, definitely.
Beautiful. So the next stage, or the next place that you can be gaining inspiration is your competitors. Do you want to take this one away? So
basically, especially when you're starting out your Facebook presence or you're revitalizing it after, like you've figured out, holy moly, there's been some huge Facebook changes. I'm not getting any reach with my page. It's time to revamp. The first place to go is to your competitors. So it's always a good idea to keep tabs on your competitors. Coming from an online marketing background, it's a great way to start out, to know what consumers are looking for and what they want to know about when it comes down to keywords and all that sort of fancy stuff. But even for the brick and mortars, it's great to keep tabs on your competitors because you can expand your breadth of research and still be hitting your ideal client, but they might be in another competitor's store or location.
Absolutely, and I love the point that you made there about brick and mortar, because I think that what I have observed of a lot of brick and mortar businesses is that you can fall into a bit of tunnel vision, especially, again, one of my passions, marrying that online and offline strategy to be working together. If you've been stuck in a lot of offline marketing or just focusing on your offline business in terms of how the day-to-day operations run, there could be opportunities that you just don't even think about for that same style of business that your competitors have been utilising really well.
Yeah,
so it's
a real mind expander.
Absolutely. And I suggest that don't let it just be that you're checking out their Facebook page. I really think you want to be looking at their digital presence and even more broadly their marketing strategy that you can see, because there are so many tips, tricks, tidbits, strategies that you can be observing that they're doing that you could potentially try out and see if it fits for your business. So, Rawls, where would you suggest that we go looking online for information?
So I think it's always good to utilise the best search tool out there, and that's Google. Basically, the best way to do it, I've found in my competitor research, is to do your industry and then plus, say, your location, whoever your competitors are. So if you're a local brick and mortar, that'd probably be your location. So make sure you use the actual plus symbol so that Google will assemble all the results. But even just putting it into Google, it'll pop up the location map
Yes.
As well, which is really helpful just to go through and then start at their website and then go over to their Facebook, see if they're rocking it on Facebook, see if they're rocking it on other social platforms as well, to give you an idea of where to direct your focus and efforts.
Absolutely. And just to give a few more examples, so obviously we're talking a lot about brick and mortar, but you could, regardless of what industry you're at, what industry you are in, you could definitely be starting with a really targeted Google search. So again, if you're an e-commerce store, you might be selling ladies fashion, for instance. You can be looking at ladies fashion online, ladies fashion shipping. Like, look at different terms that you could be using that are going to show up quite regularly on a website such as your own. Another one that comes to mind is MLM businesses. So I know that a lot of MLM consultants will often kind of brand themselves as well as being part of the brand of the business that they've bought into. Yeah. So, be looking for whatever the name of your MLM that you're involved in is, and maybe your location. Again, if that's something that you're trying to more tap into the local market. What's other examples? I'm thinking online business, obviously.
Yeah, content marketing, it's always, I've done the search so many times, your industry plus blog.
Yes.
Because then you know that they have their content marketing, they're basically giving out items of value for free in order to attract their ideal client.
Exactly. Delivering like they're an information-based business.
Yes, exactly.
Beautiful. So yeah, definitely be looking across the social media, website, and as Rory said, it doesn't necessarily just have to be Facebook that you're looking across. As we've explained in episode 1, Facebook is definitely the top ranking social media platform for small businesses, bringing in 62% of the customer base. However, there definitely are certain business types that you might find YouTube or Instagram or Pinterest or any of the others are really more targeting your ideal customers. I know that there are businesses who've made fantastic gains using Pinterest for instant. That's hard to say. Pinterest instant. So yeah, you really want to make sure that you're putting your efforts into the right social media platforms, and you can do that by just observing, what number of followers are occurring on each of the social platforms of your competitors, and are they putting more efforts into Facebook? Check out, or Facebook or Instagram or Pinterest. Check out how frequently they're posting. Check out how much engagement they're getting across the various social media platforms, and start to make some decisions based on that.
Sure.
And the other thing I wanted to say about your competitors is, if you find a few by name, so they might be their business name or even individuals, I suggest doing a search of their name and finding out where online they've showed up, because you might find that your competitors will lead you to opportunities to expand your audience through, maybe they've been featured on someone else's Facebook Live, or maybe they've been featured on a blog, or they've been to an event or something like that. So it's worth seeing.
Not the big ones like the local or wider range newspapers. I think they're still circulating, so you might as well still use them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And in fact, like that. You've touched on a great point there. You should definitely go to some traditional marketing research as well. If you specifically are a local business, go and grab your local paper. You probably get it delivered to your home anyway, and start to see, who's running ads maybe in the newspaper, or who's getting featured for different things. Just keep tabs on that kind of stuff, because again,
it's that old public relations thing of like which journalists are covering what, and can you just do a piece for them to put in the paper? Can you suggest things? I believe we've had a friend do that as well.
Absolutely. One of our friends whose husband runs an exercise physiology business, perfect example of a small business. It is a one-man operation. He jumped on, I think it was Falls Prevention Month, or it was a month specific to something that he teaches his clients a lot. And so he actually ran an event that was in conjunction with that, that month, that health awareness month. And was able to get featured in the newspaper for no cost, because editors and journalists want information about what's happening in the community. So there are great opportunities to be had, and if you can see how your competitors perhaps have been featured in that way, it's going to give you some inspiration to run similar events, or give it your own flavour and find what suits for you. Oh. Okay. So then the final thing to go and look for in terms of inspiration is post types. And we're talking very specifically about Facebook here, as this show generally is speaking about Facebook. But it's really important that your page be featuring only the post types that your audience are most engaging with.
Yeah, exactly. So too often, and particularly in our area or our previous area with online business, it became the norm to chuck up a graphic or an image. Whereas now I'm finding that a lot of the high-ranking pages and also the engagement that people are responding to are certainly videos, like we touched on across the other couple of episodes. So important, but also just the text, going back to basics, the text-only posts as well are really vibing with people, and they're moving away from that image post.
Absolutely. And so we identify that there are really 4 primary post types, they being text only, images, video, and sharing links. We did also briefly mention last week that you could also be doing things like event posts, which I think are very relevant again to local businesses. But the majority of the content that you produce for your Facebook page will likely fall into one of those 4 that we mentioned.
Yeah.
And it's really important to go, again, when you're looking at your competitors, or even if you're doing a review of your own page, observe what's working in both instances, and perhaps test those first, as opposed to, say, just throwing all 4 types up onto your page and kind of just not really having too much. You haven't got enough data there to compare.
Yeah, exactly. And so how do you narrow in on which post type's going to work for your audience?
Well, as I said, I think it's really starting with what your page has done well in the past and what your competitors are doing well. And then it's just a matter of testing. What I really want to stress here is that the testing of your page and what's going to work best is likely going to be a process that runs anywhere from 1 to 12 months. It's not going to be, especially, it really depends on how large your page is. If you have a quite small fledgling page and you're still building your audience, it's going to take longer as more audience come in and start interacting. When you only have a small audience, and especially if it's a page that you haven't put a lot of effort into in the past, you might find it's going to take even some time just to re-engage who you already have on your list. But I do suggest not to be discouraged. It is just, you've got to play the long game when it comes to Facebook, and you will be rewarded in the long term if you do.
Definitely.
Build that raving fan base.
Exactly. Yeah, the people are going to be taking action consistently and engaging on your content.
Exactly. So, just to recap, we've said you want to go and check out your audience and find out where they are by doing that ideal customer avatar work in your business and going back and reviewing it. You want to check out who your competitors are and where they're showing up and how they're doing things. And finally, you want to be figuring out what kind of posts your audience are most engaging with and be doing some consistent testing to see if it works for your business.
So now we come to our favourite time of the episode, time to make it real.
Because after all, if you're just listening to this episode and you're not going and taking any action in your business, nothing's going to change for your digital presence. So we want you to have a big presence after all. So, Rory, this week, we're suggesting that everyone head on over to bigpresenceshow.com/inspire. And we have produced a workbook that's going to help you go through everything that we've spoken about in this episode so you can get really clear on your customer avatar. You can go and find out through the methods we've suggested how to find your competitors and start to track them. And we're also going to help you figure out which post types are best suited to your audience. So, just to say again, go on over to bigpresenceshow.com/inspire and download that today.
That's all for episode 3 of the Small Business Big Presence Show.
Be sure to tune in next week when we examine stage 2 of the Facebook page growth loop, creation, where we're going to help you create an effective post-planning schedule that will help build consistency and connection.
Until then, keep creating big impact in your small business with your big presence.
Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
Remember, 62% of consumers use Facebook to help inform their buying decisions. Don't let your Facebook page stop one of your customers from investing in your small business. Get the lowdown on the 4-step system we teach our students to help transform their pages and turn presence into profit. And to be the first notified when we drop a new episode, be sure to subscribe to the show. Head on over to bigpresenceshow.com/subscribe to get started.